Sweet. Hello. Live here on YouTube because it's a little bit late, but this morning I caught a fish, and when I got home, I decided to set it on some brine, and it's been brining most of the day and into the evening hours. 6 hours is about how long my brine recipe is for, and now I'm going to kind of finish the process of taking the fish out of the brine, rinsing it off, and putting it on some paper towels, because one of the most important steps of making smoked salmon is forming the pellicle layer. Now, this is just kind of like a drying outer layer of the salmon that forms once you take it out of the brine, rinse it, set it out in a cool area with good air circulation. So I was going to talk a little bit about that, and this gives me an excuse to hang out with you all while I'm doing this process. So right here, this is my sink. I'm like right at my sink right now. And here's some of the brine fish. Check this out. So this is my fish all brined up. So we're gonna have a look at that. Pull the old sleeves up, and let's go ahead. And if anyone has questions or anything, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will answer as many as I can. So here's what my fish looks like after brining it today. It's looking pretty good, nice and orangey and pretty. I like that. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and rinse as well as I can. And I wanna get all of the sugar and salt off of it. So the recipe, the smoked salmon recipe that I'm following, is one that I posted on YouTube a couple years ago now. And it's called How to Make Perfect Smoked Salmon. So here's some more of these pieces, and I have them all just kind of like laying in this. I put a whole bunch of brine, dry brine on top of this. The recipe that I use is a dry brining recipe because I think it turns out amazing. So here's some more pieces of that fish, and I'm gonna bring it down here a little bit lower. Yeah, Timothy, hang on, I'm bringing you guys down here with me so we can kind of do this together. So what is my brine mixture? Is it 50-50 salt and brown sugar? So the kind of, the recipe that I use is 1/2 cup salt to 2 cups of brown sugar. So, I mean, I usually like do a lot at a time. So I'm doing like 1 cup of sugar to 4 cups of salt. And once I'm done brining, I'm rinsing these really, really well. I do not want a bunch of salt and sugar left over on my fish, because they are like caked with this stuff. So I am rinsing it all off. And this fish I caught today. Now, usually when I catch fish and intend to smoke it, I try to smoke it while it's fresh, like the same day if I can, because it tends to turn out better. I'm not really sure why it is. And if you know, feel free to like throw that in the comments. But when you smoke a fish fresh, it's so much better than doing it frozen. So I don't know exactly, I mean, isn't fish always better fresh than it is frozen? So that's the deal with that. So this, it's not showing up well on your end in the video, but it's like a beautiful, like goldeny orange red on my side. Like, it's amazing. So thanks for everyone joining tonight. I am using my recipe called How to Make Perfect Smoked Salmon, and it's a video that I actually have on my channel. It's actually the first video I ever put out, and it's still my best performing video. It was a good one. And the recipe that I'm doing is a dry brine recipe. And I'm about halfway through this process at this point. So up until now, I've put my fish in a dry brine, and I'm just now taking it out of my dry brine, and I am rinsing all of the brine off of it. And then I'm gonna set it on paper towels and some like paper bags that I've saved up from grocery stores. And then I'm gonna put a fan on it and let that fan kind of circulate cool air on them. And then for about an hour. And they're gonna start forming this like candy-like layer on the outside. So that's why I kind of labeled the video to be a bit about that pellicle layer. It's called the pellicle layer. And once you brine and then rinse and set it out to dry, it'll start forming like kind of a candy coating around the outside of it. And that's awesome because once that forms and then you go to smoke it, you get this pellicle layer just like locks in all of this delicious like moisture and flavor and oils of the fish. Your videos how-to, especially the steelhead ones. Oh, Carrie, I'm really glad that you love the steelhead how-to videos. So today you'll like this. Sorry, I'm switching subjects really fast here. So this fish I caught today, and I'm in Northern California for the time being. And while we were out there, I filmed a bobber dogging and a float fishing for salmon video, which is, I think you'll like find it very helpful. So I go through everything that I use, how I use it, why I use it, and if it was successful. It was a little successful. So anyways, back to this. Brining, forming that pellicle layer, like I said, it like locks in flavor and all of that. It really is the key to making really good smoked salmon. So if there were like, you know, the top things that I could pick out that would make like for perfect smoked salmon, I think they are, you're right. Water is not cheap here. You're right, that was a good call out. I accept that. That's a good call out. So anyways, the top things for making perfect smoked salmon, I would say that forming the pellicle layer has got to be like among the top. That's a really important piece of it. I would say the second thing is getting your brine just right. I mean, there's a lot of brines that are really good, and you know, folks tend to like swear by their brine. Like, I use a wet brine and I only use a wet brine, or I use a dry brine and I only use a dry brine. I am in the dry brine camp. I have used wet brines. I just really maybe found a recipe that I think is really good. I really like it. It's consistently good for me. And like I said, I have that perfect smoked salmon video that's been up for a few years now, and it's gotten a lot of very, very good feedback, which is great. Okay, last piece that I'm rinsing here. So yeah, the top things to make great smoked salmon: brine, forming the pellicle layer, and then getting your smoke right. I really enjoy smoking the fish on like a lower heat and then a higher heat, because I like the fish to like really lock in that smoke kind of flavor. So I give it a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours sometimes, of a lower temperature smoke, and I always use alder. And then I bump it up, especially if the fish is a little bit thicker. Now, like pieces like this, I will separate out pieces that are thinner like this with pieces that are thicker like this. I'll put these on a top rack and I'll set these on a bottom rack because the heat unit is on the bottom, so they will kind of take on a lot of the heat first. But I'll probably pull these a little bit sooner than I'm going to pull these. So getting that smoke right is really that other key. Yes, us Northwest people like alder. Yes. Does it turn out salty with that brown sugar and salt combo? That's a really good question. I'm actually very glad that you asked that, because it can. And here's the deal with that. If you have big chunks of fish, so like let's say you have Chinook, it's going to be about right. In any sort of like larger, thicker fish, like that is going to be a really good ratio. For me, it works for, I'm smoking a lot of salmon, a lot of steelhead, a lot of like pretty good sized fish. I'm not smoking a lot of like little trout fillets. With that being said, when you do have thinner or smaller fish, sometimes it is nice to take down the salt ratio a little bit. So you can play with it. I mean, a lot of people like tend to like theirs a little bit saltier, or like theirs like not very salty at all. So there has to be some element of salt for the kind of brining process to work, but how much and how little, I mean, that's really up to you. So the ratio that I'm using right now is I'm using 1/2 cup of kosher coarse salt to 2 cups of brown sugar. So again, like for something like, you know, this, a good chunk of fish that's pretty thick, that's going to be just right. That's not going to be too salty. It's going to be delicious. It's going to be great. I've done this, you know, repetitively on this same species of fish, you know, over and over again. So I know that this is going to work just fine. But yes, if you do have a much smaller fish that would take up that salt really quickly, that's something that you would consider and maybe want to reduce your salt a little bit. Yeah, that was a really good question. I think I missed another question in here. I don't know how to see the questions. I use brown sugar, Yoshida's gourmet sauce, lemon juice, and salt. So yeah, I really, really like the kind of teriyaki styled flavored brines. Those are really good. And here's a fun fact. Mr. Yoshida went to the same community college that I went to. And I know that because I ended up at a fundraising event for kids to go to college, and I ended up sitting right next to me, and I thought he looked familiar, and then I saw his name tag, and I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Yoshida went to Highline College in Des Moines, Washington. Amazing. But yes, that, and with the lemon, like, oh, that sounds really good. Another thing that someone was sharing with me, I think on Facebook earlier, is that they use almost exactly the same recipe that I use, but one difference is while the fish is in smoking, they coat it with a little bit of maple syrup, like real maple syrup, to make it kind of like candied, which is really awesome. I think I did a candied kokanee video somewhere at some point, but that turned out really good, and it is very, very delicious to do it that way. So a couple folks just popped on. Hello and welcome. I'm kind of in my nighties and nightwear, but I'm up and doing a video because I caught some fish today. I caught a salmon. Here, I'll show you a piece of it. And you'll notice that the name of this video is the perfect smoked salmon recipe, but forming the pellicle layer. So the point of process that I'm in with making smoked salmon is a point where I just pulled this fish out of the brine. So here's the brine that I had. It was all a dry brine. So this was just kosher salt, coarse salt, and brown sugar, nothing else, that's it. And with the fish, it turns into this like pretty much a syrup here. And that's what had happened. I just pulled all of those pieces out of this, and I rinsed them very, very well, and I've set them out. And as soon as I'm kind of off this video with you all, I'm gonna put them on a table with a fan on them in my garage where it's cooler for about an hour. And what's gonna start to happen, and I'll tell you, it's already starting to happen. So this piece of salmon is actually dry. It's not very wet, so that sheen that you see on it is that pellicle layer starting to form. Now that's the hard kind of candy layer that forms in between the point in which you pull your fish out of the brine and then put it in the smoker. So I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour, but sometimes it happens quicker. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It doesn't have to be this exact science. But yes, as someone just commented, DSMT, letting the glaze form is helpful. It's called the pellicle layer, but yeah, it's essentially like the glaze, the candy kind of shell sort of deal that I like to think of it as a candy shell because it makes me think of how delicious it's gonna be. But that layer forming is really important. And what I wanna share and I think is important to know is that you know, of the 2 or 3 things that I think are really key to making very very great smoked salmon is the forming of that pellicle layer. Now, a lot of folks just pull it out of their brine, throw it right into the smoker. Are they making some huge mistake? No. Like, is it gonna ruin your fish? No. And if you do give it the time and opportunity to form that pellicle layer, it does improve the quality of your fish. Too big of a word for my brain. I know, pellicle layer. It's Pellicle. Yeah, I think I had to look it up to make sure I could spell it right, but when I made the title for this video. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting word. But essentially, it's that kind of the drying and of the outer layer of the fish. Very, very important for this part of the process. So I have all of this kind of sitting out, and like I said, it's already starting to form that pellicle layer. And as I feel it, like this is kind of firm, it's firming up here, but that's going to be a delicious morsel. What do you think of that? Can you tell what species of fish this is? I think I might have said it, but if you know what species silver with big black dots is, throw it in the comments. I bet someone's gonna get it. But like I said, I caught this fish earlier today, and I'm kind of going through these final process, this mid process, I guess. Oops. Sorry, I bumped you down. Kind of like these final processes before I go into the smoker. Now, here, come over here with me. You don't need to be there. Move my water. Keep an eye on the fish. So here's all the fish. And I'm grabbing some more paper towels just to most of these are dry, but I just want to make sure I blot all of the water off of them and nothing, no more water, gone, just fish. That's how I like it. It helps get that pellicle layer going. So now I'm right there. You can't really see it, but I've stuffed a whole bunch of paper bags from the grocery store. And here's kind of my process is, get rid of this too. I cut open one of these. If I can. And I lay this flat because this is really helpful for setting these on there. They kind of just go through the paper towels really easily. So having something like this is just, just a little bit more stable. So I'm going to start transporting them onto this. But here's what we got. It's looking pretty good. That pellicle layer is already forming. It's looking beautiful. It's looking delicious. And it's going to give me some time to get the smoker out while that pellicle layer is forming. So this one is really going. That, this, I wish you could feel this. I wish you could just poke it. Yeah, it's starting to get hard. Watching from Clark County Jail. Shout out to my homies in Cell Block 8. What's up, homies in Cell Block 8? Glad that everyone's thinking about some smoked salmon this afternoon. It's always a good thing. Some more of that. Do you always keep the skin on? So, yeah, I do, because once it's gone through the smoking, once it's gone through the smoking process, it's really easy to keep it, or to peel it off. It peels off really easily after smoking. But Matt was cleaning his fish the other day, and he was kind of taking care of it like a walleye, where you fillet it and then you flip it over and then you kind of run the knife along the skin. I was like, what are you doing? He was like, well, I'm going to smoke this one, so I'm taking the skin off. And I was like, oh. I wanted to say no, but I didn't have a reason why. So I suppose you could. And I suppose there's a good reason. I've learned to do it like this. And so I feel I don't know, I have a good thing going, and I don't want to change it. I don't want to risk messing it up. All right, let me put you back. I'm sorry. I just kind of did this impromptu, so I don't have anything really set up. But okay, so we have fish on a bag. Yeah, but it seems to be more fishy tail. Oh, okay, so you feel it's maybe because of the skin and the like slime associated with it, it might make it a little bit more like, yeah, like fishy tasting. That makes sense. It helps insulate and not lose the moisture as well. That's kind of what I was thinking, Timothy. And like, as I was like going through the logic of like why I would do that in my head, it made sense to have the skin on the bottom that is taking the blunt of the heat coming up, so it doesn't like really cook it. It just, you know, kind of like keeps in the moisture, like you said. Or at least that's the reasoning that I was giving myself. I don't know if it makes any sense. So that's what we have. Okay, I'm gonna bring you a little bit closer. I'm gonna try to not make anyone sick. But here's what we've got. We've got fish set up to dry, forming a pellicle layer. That's pretty good. You have to babysit the smoker when you have it like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna go head out, and like I said, in the garage, I'm gonna put this in a cool area and put a fan on it, because getting circulating air actually is a really helpful method in forming that pellicle layer, that glazed outer coating. So I have this little like put together table that I got at Next Adventure in Portland, and it like goes together really quickly. I'm gonna put this on it. I'm gonna set the fan on it to get it like drying. And in the hour that or so that it takes for the pellicle layer to form, I think it's gonna be like no more than an hour. I'll have the smoker set up in the backyard, and I'll get it smoking for the next couple of hours. So it'll be kind of a late night, I guess. Well, I guess it's only 8 o'clock. It's a late night for me because I went fishing this morning. Like this is the fish that I caught this morning. And like, who am I kidding? Even if I didn't go fishing, like my bedtime's 8 o'clock, because I will forever and always be on fishing guide schedule, which is get up at 3 a.m. And on the days that I like can sleep in, I still get up at like 5 a.m. Like I just can't stop. So it's bedtime for me, but I will stay up because good smoked fish is worth it. I use a Bradley smoker. And originally that smoker was gifted to me because there was like a company that like repped Bradley that like wanted to work with me. So they gave it to me. We actually never ended up working together. So I have the smoker. So I can give you like a legit opinion on the smoker. Like I have like, I guess it's a gift. So that's like incentive or something like that to like tell you about it. So I guess keep that in mind. It's not a totally unbiased opinion. But I have like no sponsorship with them. They're not like paying me or sponsoring this video or anything like that. Bradley smoker, I have like the 4-tier or the 4-shelf smoker, and it's like an automatic, well, I can set heat and I can set smoke, and I can set them to like shut off. So like, for example, I can set it to, smoke for 3 hours at 140 degrees. And then leave, and if I'm not home by the time the smoker's done, like it just shuts off. So I really like that about it. What's another thing I like about it is it uses it's the one that has these like little pucks that go into like this little thing that looks like a smokestack next to the smoker, and it automatically every 20 minutes, like there's a little conveyor belt of them, it like runs into the heating pad and then smokes, and then after 20 minutes there's this little thing that pushes it off the heating pad into water and puts a new puck of alder on that heating unit. And the idea behind that is you always have clean smoke, as in you don't have like burned wood that's just continuing to smoke, because that produces a lot of what is the chemical that is produced with burning? Someone's gonna know. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's technically healthier to have clean smoke or not like continuously like burning wood on your fish. Now, before I had that smoker, I had no creosote. Yeah, maybe it's that. I think there's like another thing too. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that that it helps with, but anyways, I had one that wasn't like that before, and I really liked that smoker too. Like I had no issues with it. I did have to like come and like keep an eye on it, like add chips, like clean it out, like that sort of thing all of the time. And that was kind of a pain. So this is nice because I don't have to do anything with it. Like I can just come and check the meat, still needs to keep going, cool. Like come back. I don't have to like mess with any wood once I set it, it's done. It's just done. So that's the smoker that I use, and I will, on my YouTube, like community page, I will post some photos of that. I would go live, but I don't know if I should go live at like 9, I guess it's 9 o'clock. I can go live at 9 o'clock. It wouldn't be that bad. That wouldn't be that bad. So I might show you live. It might just be photos of that then. But that smoker has been really good to me, and that's the Bradley electric smoker. So that one's been fine to me. A lot of smokers are great. I think it's important to keep in mind that you can spend as much money as you want on a smoker, but as long as it smokes wood, that's a smoker. Like you really don't have to get crazy with it. I know people that have like homemade smokers that produce smoked salmon that tastes every bit as good as mine. So keep that in mind. I don't think that the key to great smoked food is necessarily the type of smoker that you have. As long as you can, like, it can produce like smoke consistently without like catching on fire, as long as it does its job as a smoker. The important things in making great smoked salmon or great smoked meats or great smoked cheeses or anything is going to be like those preparation pieces on the front side, especially with things like salmon and meats and things like that. So with salmon, again, you know, this video was smoked salmon and the importance of forming the pellicle layer. So, I mean, just to reiterate again, the most important pieces of making good smoked salmon is going to be the step between brining and smoking, which is forming the pellicle layer, which is something that you do by drying your fish. Once you take it out of your brine and rinse the brine off and let it sit in a cool area with air on it, like a fan blowing on it or something like that, good air circulation. For about an hour, and it forms this outer shell that this fish is already starting to form, which is like this candy-like layer on the outside of it. It's getting that sheen. There's no moisture on it. I've rinsed that piece. I've blotted it really dry. That is this pellicle layer starting to form, and that's going to be the key to having nice, moist, tasty, delicious smoked salmon. So that is probably like my number one tip for making really good smoked salmon. Form the pellicle layer. Form the candy-coated layer on the outside. You're very welcome, Tiffany. Thanks for stopping by for the video. So number one, form the pellicle layer. Number two, probably the brine. There's lots of great brines that you use, but really getting your formula right between sweet and salt is going to be really, really important. I use a very simple dry brine. It works great for me. I've used it for a long time. I absolutely love it. So number two is getting your brine and brine timing right too. We don't need to be brining fish for like 3 days or anything like that. And then number three, getting your smoke right. So again, this doesn't matter with the smoker. This does matter in the sense of using like cold or like no heat, I guess, or low heat and then high heat. So in my video on my channel called How to Make Perfect Smoked Salmon, I think in that video, you should definitely check it out if you're going to make smoked salmon. It's a really good guide, and it's a very, you know, quick, like fun to watch video. It's my first video, so I'm like kind of nervous in the beginning. It's kind of funny. I can't watch the beginning of it myself, but because it makes me embarrassed. But I think in that video, I smoked my fish for 180 for like an hour or less. Maybe it's like 160 for an hour and then 140 for 2 hours. But that could be, I could be off on that by like 10 degrees or so. So check it out if you're going to do it. Anyways, this fish is starting to form its pellicle layer. I'm going to get it out in some cool area like I've been preaching here. And thank you so much for stopping by and enjoying this live video with me while I'm getting ready to smoke some salmon. I'll show you the after product. Have a wonderful Saturday night, and we'll see you with more fun things soon. Okay, good night. Bye-bye.